Hey, what's going on? This is Minister Gold. This is technically a Kaizo video. We will not really be talking about Kaizo per se, but just it's related to my journey while playing Kaizo. That is, there came a time where I was feeling like pain in my hands, and so one of my buddies, who's also a streamer, his name is Zanian. He was using a hitbox controller, also known as a leverless controller. And so I wanted to get a leverless controller because I was hoping it would help with my hand pain, which it did, mostly. Um, you also just have to like take breaks to not hurt your hands, whether you're using a regular controller or a leverless controller. And I honestly was lazy. I didn't want to make the controller on my own. I didn't want to put all that work in, so I was like, okay, let me just find somebody who's a professional and have them do it. I just want to have someone do it right, um, and have a really cool controller that works for me, that is customized exactly for me. And so I'm gonna walk you through what I did. Am I necessarily telling you to do what I did? No, because there were a lot of obstacles that I went through, and if knowing all the obstacles that I went through helps you avoid the same issues that I suffered, then great. Avoid all my issues and do it. But if my story discourages you, then that is also an acceptable conclusion. Okay, so let's go step by step here. I'll walk you through exactly what I did. Okay, let me pull up Chrome because the first thing I did was I went to Etsy. I went to Etsy and I searched. Let me sign in. Okay, so I went to Etsy and I searched for like a homemade arcade controller. So like if I go like homemade or handmade, let's say handmade arcade controller. I also saved one recently, like today, just in case, just to show you. So you have like custom leverless controller. Oh, I don't like how this looks and how small it is. I don't like these square buttons, so that kind of turns me off. This looks closer to what I want, but dang, that's expensive. Like 300 bucks for these controllers. Because you know how much I spent? I spent 180. And the guy that I got it from, he's still around, but it looks like he doesn't make controllers anymore. And honestly, like he has good reviews, but my experience with him was not good, and you'll find out why later. Um, Said none of this is what I actually want, but you know what? I saved a result to look at, which is actually not expensive. Expensive as these guys. Let me go back to my favorites because I found something earlier today. Let's go back to favorites. This guy, this guy right here. Okay, now I don't like the buttons, so what I would do is, like, I don't know who this person is. I don't know if they're good. They have only positive reviews, but nothing for this particular item. I think all these reviews they're getting are for something else, which I think is still important to know that like their other stuff was getting good reviews. But so I would look for something like this. Okay, so it says, let's see, it gives you the measurements. So that's good of like how long it is, how wide it is. It says customizable. So what I would do, like if I was doing the same thing I did before, but by someone else. Also, let me put this in dark mode. Okay, there you go. What I would do if I was doing this again, and if I was using this guy, then or this person, then I would message them first and say like, "Hey, I have specific requirements. Can I ask you to fulfill these?" If they would, then I would go with this person. But on top of that, something else I would do is before you even buy this, I would make sure you have somebody who you can rely on to make changes to your controller in case it's not exactly the way you expect it to be. Because it's going to be a pain in the butt to try to send this back and be like, hey, I didn't like how this is. Can you make it more like this? Can you adjust these things? Can you use these buttons instead? Whatever. Or like, these buttons aren't working. So that way, at least you have somebody like in your city who could help you fix this stuff. Unless you're like the kind of person who likes to do DIY, especially with like controllers and stuff and electronics, then you are that person. But if you're not that person, then make sure you have that kind of person in your city before you go ahead and commit to like paying $100 for this. Okay, so after I find the vendor who can make the controller that I want, what I would do next is I would get the exact dimensions. Okay. Then after getting the dimensions, I would get a few sheets of paper and I would attach them together either by stapling or with by paper clips, such that it's that long. It's as long as this one, and it is as like as long and as wide. Sorry, as wide and as long. It's the same length and width as this controller, but on a sheet of paper. Why? Why are you doing this on a sheet of paper? Why are you measuring multiple sheets of paper to be the same as this? Because after you do that, well, after I did that, I did this. I made this. Okay. So what I did next is I took my sheets of paper, I put them flat on like my desk in front of me. I rested my hands on those sheets of paper, and then what I did next was underneath each finger. Okay, I'm putting like with my hand rested, I'm putting a dot under each finger. Okay, so that I know exactly where my fingers would lie on this controller, because like I'm 100% serious when I say like I want this controller to be exactly fit for my hands. And so that's why I'm doing all these measurements. So it's like perfect for me. And so then after you have all the dots beneath each finger, what I did next is okay, make sure you have the measurement of each of the buttons, and then like still using a ruler, you're measuring how big the radius is for each circle. Okay. And so in my case, let me tell you how big the buttons were for me. Let me go to my email. I can't show my email, but I'll tell you exactly which buttons I got. Um, and the buttons that I got originally are not the buttons that the Etsy seller originally provided to me. The buttons that the Etsy seller originally provided to me were called Sanwa. It was not a good experience. It was not a good experience because either they were too sensitive and triggered too early, or they didn't trigger at all when I pressed them, or they were very delayed. So I had a lot of issues with these buttons. I was like, no, I can't play Kaizo. I can't play Kaizo with these buttons. Um, so these are the buttons someone locally told me to get. I bought these buttons from a place called Focus Attack. The name of the buttons were Crown slash Sam Duxa. The exact model number is SDB-202 MX 24 millimeter screw button red. That is the exact, those are the exact buttons that I got. And I'll post something on screen so you can have exactly the name of those buttons that I got. See, I ordered those buttons, and then I had those delivered to my guy who was updating this controller for me. Those buttons were a good change. Other issues, other issues. Oh, sorry. Before we go into other issues, let me talk to you more about what you're seeing on screen here. Okay, so let me zoom in. Now, what I did was for every button on this controller, I was measuring how far each button was from the top and the left. If they're closer to the top and the left side, if they're closer to the top and the right, I'm I'm measuring how many centimeters away from the right and the top they are. And likewise, if they're closer to the bottom of the left, record how far they are from the left to the bottom. If they're closer to the right and the bottom, then measure how far each button is from the right and the bottom. And that way, I'm able to communicate to whoever's making my controller. This is the exact spot where I want each of the buttons to be. So there can be no mistaking. There can be no mistaking or misplacement of where I want all these buttons to be. I also wanted like a bit of a slope for my hands to rest. I got like a minor slope. I didn't really get exactly what I wanted, but it's okay. That's fine. It's not a big deal with that. But yeah, so that's what I did on paper as far as you know, measuring the layout of where I wanted all the buttons and, sharing that with the person who's making my controller from scratch. Now, even after I had this controller made, I had other issues. So the creator of my hitbox, not my hitbox, so the people, they call them hitboxes, but hitbox is a brand, and I just want to make sure I'm using the right terminology. But it's a leverless controller, so I'll call it a leverless controller. Um, since that is the term for all controllers that are arcade controllers but do not have the stick. But yeah, another issue I had with my leverless controller is that the creator made it so it has a magnetic bottom lid, which is cool, but I don't know much about electronics, but I don't think it's a good idea to have magnets next to electronics. And then secondly, um, often this controller would sit on my lap, and sometimes my knee would like push in one side of the lid, and the lid would come loose, even though it's a magnetic lid. So basically the magnets were didn't seem like they were strong enough, and so um, I ended up having them. I sent the box back and was like, hey, can you just make it so that it screws in and doesn't like rely on magnets? And so I had them do that. Another issue I had with the box was that the wires were taped. The wires were taped, and sometimes the tape would come loose. And if the tape comes loose, then the buttons can come loose, and then the buttons won't work anymore. So that was a huge issue that I had. So I had my guy who's local solder solder it instead, so that it actually like stays put. Um, Now after all that is said and done, I still have one remaining issue that I never resolved. This controller is great, but my remaining issue is that this spot where you put in the USB, sometimes that comes loose. Eventually, that comes loose. I have to push it back in. That's kind of annoying. I wish it would just stay put. Uh, but I think that piece would have to be entirely redone to get it done right. So for now, I'm just living with it. And I think after all of my expenses, I ended up paying around $240 or something for this controller. Say it was expensive. It was very expensive. It was like two. Sorry, I can't really remember. It was like 240 to 300, not more than 300. Um, but yeah, so that's everything I went through to get a working controller. Was it worth it? I mean, that's really like a personal thing, like as far as like how I feel about it. It was way more expensive than I wanted to pay, but I love this controller. So in the end, I'm happy that I got it. But if you decide to go the same path that I did, I want you to be aware of all the issues that I went through to get this working. Because now that you're aware of all the planning that I did, all the issues that I went through with like not having the right bottom, not having the right like not having like the ideal like buttons to use, not having soldered wires, like all this stuff, then you know that you're gonna want that stuff from the beginning, so you don't have that mistake. Um, but yeah, I hope this either helps you with getting your own custom made leverless controller, or scares you, scares you to not pursue it because you don't want to deal with all these issues. You're like, you know what? Maybe I just make this controller on my own. Which, you know what? If you have the motivation, if you have the patience to do that, then good on you. Good on you, and do that. I was lazy, but I ended up paying for it. So so yeah, that is my story. That is my story behind my leverless controller. I hope you appreciate my story. And yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know whether this encourages you to get a leverless controller, or whether you've decided, okay, you know what? After hearing your story, nah, I'll either just get like a just like a just like a ready-made leverless controller, just like a basic leverless controller, not custom made, or I'll just get it made on my own. And yeah, that's it. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please share with me. And if you'd like to talk with me about Kaizo, gaming, Twitch, life in general, please follow me on twitch.tv/ministrygold. All right, see ya.